William Lyman Phillips was in a generation, brand new graduates of Harvard's brand new landscape program. They were taught engineering, architecture, horticulture. They were told to travel the world, to document the world's great gardens, and then to come back and recreate those places in American terms. When the Depression intervened, that whole generation started doing public work. But as a result of that, he became involved in the Civilian Conservation Corps. He was hired to come to Miami-Dade County to work on Grinnell's Park, Matheson Hammock. And while he was working at Matheson Hammock, Colonel Montgomery was starting Fairchild Garden. And the work that Phillips was doing was outstanding. He had fundamental principles about organization, symmetry, contrast, how you should walk through a dark covered dappled light and then come into a brilliant sunlit space. It was a moment in time when they really believed that landscape architecture and botany could make life better. And Phillips came and he found this place, which was essentially the grove and the mangrove, and he said, he came up with an essential idea. And his essential idea was this: you would enter and you would have this great axis, like a beautiful French garden, and you would look out over the landscape, over the water, you'd see the merging of sea and sky. Along this great axis, he would have these fingers extending in each direction, and from those fingers, you would explore the plots of the garden, and that the garden would be organized into plots by families, so that you could begin to understand the relationships among various species of plants. He believed in universal principles and local materials. So you take the big ideas from the most amazing landscapes all over the world, and you bring those ideas to the local condition, even if it's a mangrove swamp, and then you explain those ideas using local materials. So if we were in France, we'd be standing on a gravel path, but we're in Miami, and so what you see are the native oaks. You look out over the landscape of the lakes and you see the great Florida sky. His design intention was that when you came here, you didn't feel the hand of the designer. The hand of the designer is so subtle that it's as if the place were found. That's part of why the organizing axes are so important, because the notion is that you're more drawn to see something when it has light at the end of it. So if you have this tapestry of covered spaces and open spaces, then there's a kind of dappled shade and light, then one is always moving to the next encounter to see what's in this space. So the garden has this aspect of discovery. He then developed the palm glade, which is just to the east of the overlook. His idea there was to introduce the oolitic limestone in a more decorative manner, more that you'd find in a formal garden, and that you would look down over these parterres. Parterres are the spaces on the ground that are often planted, and they were meant to almost look like an oriental carpet. And his thought was that that could be changing, and then the palms around would make this kind of forest in which you would find this garden, and then the same idea of looking out over the lake. The palm glade view back is something that a lot of people don't necessarily experience, but when you do, it's a rewarding view, because Phillips used a game of reverse curves. So for example, the first curve is actually coming toward us in the ground plane. You can kind of see the edge of the limestone. Then you have the curves that are coming down on each side, and again, those are inverted. And then there's the arch that is at the very end of the palm glade, and it's sitting above a curved pond. But this is just a wonderful study of geometry. When one leaves a landscape, it leaves a memorable impression, a concept, an idea of place in your mind when you leave. You should be able to behold the landscape in your head when you leave it. So I think that for a visitor to ask themselves when they leave, can I imagine this place? And to that extent, I think these organizing spaces form the structure, and then the fingers that connect it, the kind of network of discovery and adventure, are the places that you remember. I mean, when you think about 1938 and 2008, and you realize that the design is as fresh and powerful to us today, and it's a legacy. So I think one of the wonderful things about Fairchild is that everybody here, volunteers, staff, horticulturalists, scientists, really appreciate the legacy of the Phillips design. So I think to have a place like Fairchild where time is just part of the landscape and the history stays alive with the present day, I think that's a beautiful gift. It's about laying down a place that is so profound and meaningful that generations of people will feel that they have discovered it.